The vastness of space has always been a source of awe and mystery for humanity. For centuries, we've gazed into the night sky, wondering what lies beyond our reach, waiting to be discovered. But sometimes, the universe doesn't just remain silent. Sometimes, it speaks. And when it does, the consequences can be beyond our wildest imaginations. In the year 2025, an anomaly appeared from the far reaches of our solar system, a visitor that would change the course of human history. Known as 3I/Atlas, this interstellar object was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. It wasn't just a comet or an asteroid. This was something new, something strange. And what happened next left the world stunned, searching for answers. As astronomers turned their telescopes toward the unknown, they saw a flash of light in the darkness, a flare that would forever change how we view the cosmos. But this wasn't just any flare. It was more brilliant than anything anyone had ever observed. The intensity was so high that for a brief moment it outshone everything else in the sky, making the stars themselves seem dim in comparison. Something had triggered this celestial eruption, and it was something that could not be explained by conventional science. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, 3I/Atlas disappeared behind the sun, vanishing from view for a time. But when it reappeared, it was different. It glowed brighter, more strangely than before, as if the very nature of the universe had shifted in response to its presence. For a brief, extraordinary moment, the night sky seemed to ripple with energy, a burst of light that lasted for only 6 minutes, but felt as if it had altered the fabric of time itself. This is the story of 3I/Atlas, the anomaly that no one could explain, the discovery that both captivated and terrified the world. It all began in the quiet night sky above northern Germany. There, an amateur astronomer named Maria Schultz was conducting a routine observation with her 12-inch telescope. Like many before her, she had hoped to record a normal celestial event, perhaps a comet or a faint star. But what she saw instead was far from ordinary. Maria was scanning the sky when she noticed something unusual. A faint green object appeared in her field of view, a blur against the vast expanse of stars. At first, she thought it was just another comet, a distant object that would soon drift out of sight. But something wasn't right. The light from this object began to behave in an entirely unexpected way. The faint green glow spiked on her screen, a sharp vertical jump that caught her attention. It was as if the object had suddenly pulsed in the night sky, sending out a burst of light. She double-checked all her instruments, ensuring everything was calibrated correctly. The star alignment was perfect, the humidity was within acceptable limits, and the equipment was functioning properly.
Still, the light continued to increase, brighter and brighter, until it was nearly 4 times its original intensity. The light lasted exactly 6 minutes before it faded away, leaving nothing but a faint trace in the sky. Maria was stunned. She knew this was no ordinary celestial event. What she had just observed defied all known explanations. There was no comet or asteroid that could behave in such a way. The light was too intense, too focused, and it lasted too long for it to be a mere fluke. Maria quickly shared her findings with the local astronomy community, and soon other amateur astronomers from across the globe, Brazil, New Zealand, and Arizona reported the same phenomenon. They had all observed the same sudden pulse of light, the same exact pattern occurring at the same time. What had started as a single observation by an amateur astronomer was now a global event. The object, which would later be known as 3I/Atlas, was becoming the talk of the scientific world. As the news spread, major observatories from around the world turned their attention to the object in the sky. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. The brightness, the sudden flare, the perfectly timed pulses, all of it defied the usual explanations for cosmic phenomena. Astronomers were excited but also baffled. They were witnessing something extraordinary, something that could change the way humanity understood the universe. Within hours of the first observation, the global scientific community had mobilized. The biggest telescopes, including the James Webb Telescope, turned their lenses toward 3I/Atlas. Every major observatory, from those in Chile to Japan, pointed their instruments at the anomaly, eager to capture data that might help explain the object's strange behavior. The excitement was palpable. It was clear to everyone involved that this wasn't just another comet or asteroid. This was something new, something that no one had expected to find in the depths of space. The data began pouring in, and it was unlike anything astronomers had ever encountered before. The light from the object was not constant, as expected for a typical comet or asteroid. It fluctuated, pulsed, and even flared up brighter than anything observed in the history of astronomy. The most baffling part, however, was how quickly the object faded. After the initial flare, 3I Atlas dimmed, its brightness returning to a much more subtle glow. It was as if the object had burned brightly, made its mark on the universe, and then faded away once more.
As more and more data came in from observatories around the world, it became clear that the object, 3I-Atlas, was a cosmic enigma. Its behavior was so strange, so unlike anything previously observed, that it quickly gained international attention. Media outlets picked up on the story, and soon the general public became just as captivated by the mystery of 3I-Atlas as the scientists working to understand it. Social media platforms exploded with theories, hashtags like Atlas Anomaly and 3I-Atlas trending worldwide. Amateur astronomers and space enthusiasts joined the conversation, sharing their own observations and speculations. It became a global event, a moment in space exploration history that would be remembered for years to come. As the scientific community scrambled to collect more data, there was an increasing sense of urgency. Observatories that had been focused on other celestial bodies temporarily shifted their attention to 3I-Atlas. The object had quickly become the most studied phenomenon in the history of modern astronomy. International space agencies, including NASA, the European Space Agency, ESA, and the China National Space Administration, CNSA, began to collaborate on tracking and analyzing the object. The global scientific community, once divided by competition, came together in the face of the unknown. It was a rare moment of unity in the often competitive world of space exploration. However, as the excitement reached its peak, something unexpected happened. Data from the observatories began to slow down. The initial wave of observations was followed by a curious lull. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, 3I-Atlas went silent. After the initial burst of excitement, the world suddenly fell silent. The observatories, which had been so eager to share their findings, began to stop reporting. The data stream slowed, then halted altogether. For weeks, there was no new information from the global network of telescopes. The silence was deafening. Scientists who had once been at the forefront of the discovery stopped responding to questions. The forums where experts had debated and discussed the anomaly were now empty. The social media buzz that had once surrounded the object was now a distant memory. It was as if 3I-Atlas had vanished from both the sky and the scientific community, leaving behind only questions. This silence was unlike anything anyone had ever experienced before. What had happened to the data? Why had the observatories gone quiet? Was this just a technical issue, or was there something more at play? Theories began to swirl. Some speculated that the data was being suppressed, that someone or some entity was hiding the truth about what had been discovered. Others believed that the object had triggered some kind of response in the scientific community, a reaction that was too great to reveal to the public. Whatever the reason, the silence left a lingering sense of unease. The world had witnessed something extraordinary, but now the question remained. Why was no one talking about it? Was there something they were afraid to share? Something too big, too strange, too dangerous to be revealed? As the weeks passed, the silence surrounding 3I Atlas became increasingly unsettling. The global scientific community, once filled with excitement and collaboration, now appeared fractured and confused. The public, too, was left in the dark. News outlets had moved on, reporting on other events, but the mystery of 3I Atlas still lingered in the background, unanswered. Scientists were now questioning what had been observed, and more troubling, what had been hidden from the public. The lack of transparency was almost as perplexing as the anomaly itself. Was the data too strange to be shared? Was there something more to 3I Atlas than the world was ready to understand? As the world waited for answers, theories continued to emerge. Some suggested that 3I Atlas was a natural phenomenon, a comet or asteroid behaving in an unpredictable manner. Others, however, began to entertain more extraordinary possibilities. What if this wasn't just a random celestial object? What if it was something designed, something that had a purpose beyond our comprehension? The suggestion that 3I Atlas was not natural but artificial began to take hold among some researchers. Was it a probe from another civilization? A spacecraft? Or perhaps a signal sent from beyond our solar system? The idea that the object was not a mere cosmic anomaly, but an active participant in a larger cosmic system gained traction. Despite the silence, the questions kept coming. Was 3I Atlas an isolated event, or was it part of a larger pattern, one that humanity had yet to fully comprehend? If it was artificial, what message was it trying to send? And, most chillingly, was it watching us, waiting for us to notice? With no answers forthcoming from official channels, amateur astronomers continued their observations. They were determined to uncover the truth, even if the powers that be were reluctant to share it. Through their efforts, more data trickled in, though it wasn't merely enough to explain the mystery. What they did find, however, only deepened the intrigue. They recorded faint signals, weak electromagnetic pulses, and strange radiation readings coming from the object. It was as if 3I Atlas was reacting to the attention it had garnered. It wasn't just a passive object in space. It seemed to be actively interacting with its surroundings. The electromagnetic pulses were particularly troubling. They were unlike anything observed from natural objects like comets or asteroids. These pulses, though weak, appeared to be structured, almost as though they were being deliberately emitted. The frequency was too precise to be random. And then, just as quickly as the pulses appeared, they stopped, adding to the eerie nature of the entire event.
The timing of everything, from the initial flare to the radio signals, the sudden disappearance and the prolonged silence began to look more and more like an intentional act. What could be the purpose of all this? Why was 3I/Atlas, whatever it was, choosing now to make itself known to humanity? The scientific community, both amateur and professional, was left with no clear answers. While some held on to the idea that the object was just a weird but natural anomaly, the evidence pointed in a different direction. The theories surrounding 3I/Atlas began to move from the realm of the purely scientific into the speculative. Was this object part of a larger cosmic intelligence? Had humanity stumbled upon something far more profound than anyone could have imagined? The silence, in many ways, only served to make the mystery more intense. It wasn't just about an object in space anymore, it was about what it meant for the future of humanity. Could 3I/Atlas be the first sign of contact from another intelligence? Or was it something more dangerous, an advanced probe that was silently observing humanity in preparation for something yet to come? As the questions grew, so did the tension. The global scientific community was divided. Some continued their work in silence, analyzing what little data they had. Others began to speak out, questioning why so much information had been locked away. Conspiracy theories began to spread, each one more fantastical than the last. Some speculated that 3I/Atlas was part of an ancient network of alien probes, reactivated after millennia of dormancy. Others suggested that it was not a probe at all, but a piece of a much larger cosmic intelligence, searching for something, perhaps us. Despite the lack of concrete answers, the mystery persisted. Every new piece of data, every new observation only deepened the sense that humanity had stumbled upon something extraordinary, something that had the potential to change everything. But no one could say for sure what it was or why it had come to Earth's attention now. Was it a harbinger of something much greater? A warning? Or a message? Or was it simply the beginning of a much larger story, one that humanity was not yet ready to understand? And then, just as the silence had become unbearable, a new piece of the puzzle emerged, an unexpected signal, unlike any previously recorded. It was a sharp, clear burst of radio energy that cut through the cosmic background like a blade. For a brief moment, the data from the signal was clear, the frequency was precise, and its structure unmistakable. It was unlike anything that could have come from a natural source. It was as if someone, or something, was trying to communicate. This signal, unlike the faint pulses from earlier, was powerful, focused, and direct, and it was aimed at Earth. For the first time since 3I/Atlas had appeared, there was no silence. The object had spoken again. But what did it mean?
Was this the beginning of a new phase in our cosmic exploration? Or was it the first step towards something much more terrifying? The world watched, waited, and speculated. For in the heart of the mystery lay the ultimate question. What was 3I/Atlas, and what was its purpose? As the world held its breath, one thing became clear. The mystery was far from over. The radio signal, now detected by multiple observatories around the world, marked a dramatic shift in the ongoing mystery of 3I/Atlas. For a brief moment, the cosmic silence was broken. The clarity of the signal and its unmistakable structure made it evident. This was no random cosmic noise. The signal was focused, direct, and deliberate, like a message being sent to Earth. The timing was too precise to be a mere coincidence, too clear to be explained away by natural phenomena. The signal itself was not erratic or scattered like most radio waves in space. Instead, it displayed a distinct pattern, a regularity that could only be interpreted as something intentional. It was a structure so perfect, so mathematically precise, that it could only be the work of a conscious entity. What could this signal mean? Could it be the first instance of communication from an extraterrestrial civilization? Or was 3I/Atlas not an object at all, but an emissary, a messenger, carrying something far more significant? The question of whether this was a deliberate act of communication or an unexpected anomaly shifted the focus of the global scientific community. Researchers scrambled to decode the signal, to understand its meaning. But as soon as it arrived, it faded into the ether, leaving behind only questions. No one could explain why it had come or why it had disappeared so suddenly. Theories began to multiply. Some believed it was a natural phenomenon, perhaps a signal created by the interaction of 3I-IATLS with the solar wind or other cosmic forces. But the precision of the signal made this explanation seem increasingly unlikely. Others began to speculate that 3I-IATLS was far more than a simple comet or asteroid. Perhaps it was a probe, a piece of advanced technology sent from another civilization observing humanity from the depths of space. This theory, while wild, gained traction. The object's behavior, the bursts of light, the radio signals, and its companion seemed to suggest that 3I-IATLS was far from an ordinary cosmic object. It had purpose, direction, and perhaps a message to deliver. Despite the feverish efforts of scientists and the growing attention from the media, the global silence continued. The radio signal had been detected, but the response from the world space agencies was muted. In an era where scientific discoveries are typically met with press conferences and public statements, the absence of official commentary raised eyebrows. What were they not telling us? The idea of a cover-up began to take hold. The data that had been collected by observatories around the world was locked away.
It was as though the world's most advanced telescopes had seen something too big, too profound to share. Theories swirled about what could be hidden in that data. Was 3I Atlas a signal from an alien civilization? Or was it part of a larger, cosmic design, one that humanity wasn't ready to understand? For those who had been following the story, it was becoming increasingly clear. The mystery was far from over. The global silence surrounding 3I Atlas only deepened the intrigue. Data was being suppressed. Scientists who had been eager to discuss their findings just days earlier now refused to comment. Forums and discussions about 3I Atlas were deleted from the internet. Social media, which had been flooded with theories and observations, was now eerily quiet. It seemed as though someone, somewhere, had decided that the truth was too dangerous to reveal. Rumors began to circulate that certain space agencies had ordered a complete halt to all communications about the object. Some scientists even claimed they were instructed to destroy or obscure their data. Behind the scenes, a global effort was underway to prevent the public from learning too much about 3I Atlas. Why? What was so important that it had to be kept secret? Amateur astronomers, however, were not so easily silenced. Armed with their telescopes and a determination to uncover the truth, they continued to observe 3I Atlas from their vantage points around the world. They reported more sightings of the object, more pulses of light, and even more unusual phenomena. The object's behavior was inconsistent with any known comet or asteroid. It didn't just pass through the solar system, it seemed to be actively interacting with its surroundings, responding to the attention it had garnered. One of the most troubling discoveries was the companion object that appeared to be following 3I Atlas. This smaller, cooler, and dimmer object traveled alongside the main body, maintaining a precise distance and speed. Some theorists suggested that this companion object was controlling 3I Atlas, fine-tuning its trajectory and movement in ways that defied natural explanation. Others speculated that the two objects were part of a larger system, a cosmic apparatus designed for a specific purpose. The idea of a spacecraft or probe began to root firm, but without official confirmation, it remained purely speculative. As the weeks turned into months, the scientific community was divided. On one hand, some insisted that 3I Atlas was a natural phenomenon, albeit an extremely rare one. On the other hand, a growing number of researchers began to believe that 3I Atlas was something far more significant, a deliberate, intelligent presence from beyond our solar system. The growing silence surrounding the object, coupled with the strange behavior it exhibited, only fueled the speculation. Was 3I Atlas a warning,
A test? Or perhaps the first contact from an extraterrestrial civilization?
The theories were endless, but no answers came. For every question asked, there was no clear response. And then, just as the world was beginning to forget, just as the object had seemingly disappeared from view, something extraordinary happened. A new signal was detected. This one, however, was different. It was not a random burst of electromagnetic radiation. It was a focused, deliberate beam, a signal directed straight at Earth. The frequency was strikingly familiar, almost as if the object knew exactly where to aim. The signal, which lasted only 12 seconds, was clear and direct. It seemed to carry a message, but its meaning was unclear. The question now was, who or what was sending this signal, and why now? The world waited, watched, and listened, but no answers came. The data was once again locked away, hidden from the public. Space agencies issued vague statements claiming that the signal needed further analysis. Meanwhile, independent researchers continued to scrutinize the raw data, trying to piece together the mystery on their own. The silence that had enveloped 3I Atlas now seemed even more sinister. The radio signal, though brief, had been unmistakable. But what did it mean? Was it the beginning of a larger message, or was it simply a precursor to something even more profound? Theories continued to pour in, but the one thing that remained clear was that 3I Atlas was no ordinary object. It was something more, something that humanity was not yet ready to understand. The world had seen the signal, heard the message, and now the wait began. What would happen when 3I Atlas returned? Would it be the same, or would something even more extraordinary unfold? The answers, it seemed, were just beyond our reach, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. As the world grappled with the implications of the radio signal, the scientific community was thrust into a state of uncertainty. Space agencies, once eager to share their findings, were now playing their cards close to their chest. The sudden spike of silence, the withholding of critical data, and the apparent refusal to acknowledge the true nature of 3I Atlas left the public and amateur astronomers alike increasingly frustrated. The secrecy surrounding the anomaly only heightened the intrigue. Was this an isolated event, or was 3I Atlas part of something larger, something that humanity had yet to grasp? The signal itself, though brief, had made one thing clear. 3I Atlas wasn't just a passive visitor to the solar system. It was interacting with its environment, reacting to the observations, and, most disturbingly, responding to humanity. The signal was aimed directly at Earth, precisely tuned to match frequencies that were universally recognized, something that could not be dismissed as mere cosmic noise. Some began to wonder whether this was a form of communication, whether 3I Atlas was trying to speak to humanity. But what was the message?
In closed circles, more radical theories began to emerge. Some believed that 3I/Atlas was part of a larger system, perhaps a collection of interstellar probes sent to observe and communicate with intelligent civilizations. Others posited that it was part of an alien infrastructure that had been dormant for millennia, now reactivated to gather data on humanity. The possibility that 3I/Atlas was not just a passive object, but an active agent in a much larger cosmic plan was gaining traction. And yet, despite the growing weight of evidence, the official channels remained silent. The data was locked, and scientists were ordered to halt their investigations. Amid this silence, rumors of a global cover-up began to circulate. Was there more to 3I/Atlas than any of us could imagine? Why were certain pieces of data suppressed, while others were carefully filtered for public consumption? And why had the global space community suddenly gone dark? Were they hiding something that could alter humanity's place in the universe?
In an attempt to answer some of these questions, a few brave scientists and independent researchers continued their work, delving deeper into the remaining data and searching for any clues that might explain the object's origins and purpose. Among them, one breakthrough stood out: the discovery of a secondary, smaller object traveling with 3I/Atlas. This companion was dimmer, cooler, and seemed to maintain a precise distance from the main object, moving in perfect synchrony. It was as if the two objects were linked, operating together in a way that could not be explained by natural forces alone. Was this smaller object some sort of control mechanism? A probe that guided 3I/Atlas through the solar system, perhaps? Or was it something even more profound? A power source, a communications relay, or an advanced technology that humanity couldn't yet comprehend? Whatever it was clear that 3I/Atlas wasn't traveling alone. It had a companion, one that was seemingly just as significant as the object itself. As the two objects made their way through the solar system, they continued to exhibit behavior that defied the conventional understanding of comets and asteroids. The primary object, 3I/Atlas, displayed intense bursts of energy, sudden changes in brightness, and electromagnetic emissions. It was as if the object was sending signals, communicating, or even deliberately altering its trajectory in response to the data being collected. The companion object, on the other hand, remained more enigmatic. Its behavior was precise, controlled, and seemingly deliberate. It seemed to act as a guiding force for 3I/Atlas, maintaining its position with mathematical accuracy. Despite the ongoing efforts to study and understand these anomalies, there was still no clear explanation. The scientific community was at a crossroads, caught between the need for answers and the mounting pressure to remain silent.
What was 3I/Atlas, and what did it mean for humanity? Was it an alien probe, a message, or something far more dangerous? The global silence continued. No new data was shared. No official statements were made. The world waited, watching as 3I/Atlas and its companion object moved further into the depths of space. The theories continued to evolve, but without any new evidence, no one could confirm or deny the truth. The only certainty was that the mystery of 3I/Atlas was far from over. And then, just as the object was about to disappear behind the sun, a new revelation came to light. The James Webb Space Telescope, still focused on 3I/Atlas, captured a series of infrared images that stunned the scientific community. These images revealed something remarkable: an intricate pattern etched on the surface of 3I/Atlas, lines so sharp and precise that they could not be the result of natural processes. The object's surface was smooth, but with geometric angles and straight lines that suggested an artificial origin. It was as if someone or something had deliberately crafted the object, imbuing it with a purpose beyond our comprehension. The images also revealed an unusual energy signature emanating from within 3I/Atlas. This energy was cyclical, rising and falling in perfect intervals. It was almost as if the object was alive, responding to its environment, processing data, or even generating power. The more scientists studied the data, the more it became clear that 3I/Atlas was not just an anomaly. It was a complex, intelligent system in its own right. This discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Could 3I/Atlas be an ancient, dormant spacecraft, reactivated after millennia of inactivity? Was it a probe sent by an alien civilization, a relic of a long-forgotten mission? Or was it something else entirely, a tool, a weapon, or even a message from a civilization far more advanced than our own? With each new discovery, the questions grew. What was 3I/Atlas? What was its purpose? And why had it come to our solar system? Was it trying to communicate with humanity? Or was it merely observing us from afar? And most importantly, what would happen when it returned?
As the object disappeared behind the sun, the scientific community was left with more questions than answers. But one thing was certain: 3I Atlas had changed everything. It had opened a new chapter in humanity's exploration of the cosmos, and the story was far from over. The silence may have returned, but the mystery of 3I Atlas would continue to haunt humanity for years to come. And when it returns, if it returns, what will it bring with it? As the mystery of 3I Atlas deepened, the global community remained divided on how to approach the enigma. The silence from space agencies persisted, and with each passing day, the urgency to uncover the truth only intensified. Independent researchers and amateur astronomers, however, refused to back down.
Armed with the limited data they had, they continued to observe, analyze, and theorize. Among these independent groups, the question remained: why had this object appeared so suddenly, and why had it been so profoundly different from anything previously observed? Theories about 3I ATS continued to evolve. Some speculated that the object was an interstellar probe, sent by an unknown civilization to observe Earth and its inhabitants. The fact that the object displayed such strange behavior, including the unusual bursts of energy, the electromagnetic pulses, and the precise movements of its companion object, seemed to support this theory. The possibility that 3I ATS was not a natural cosmic body, but instead an advanced piece of technology, gained traction. However, not all theories pointed to extraterrestrial origins. Some researchers proposed that 3I ATS could be a part of a much larger, complex cosmic system, one that humans had yet to fully understand. The idea that 3I ATS was a natural phenomenon, a rare and previously unknown type of comet or asteroid, was still on the table. But as new data continued to be analyzed, this theory seemed to become less and less plausible. The object's behavior simply didn't match anything in the known catalog of space phenomena. One of the most compelling ideas was that 3I ATS was a form of cosmic scout, sent to explore and monitor the solar system before the arrival of something larger and more significant. This notion gained further weight after more data was uncovered about the companion object that had been traveling alongside 3I ATS. While initially dismissed as a fragment of debris, new observations began to suggest that this secondary object was anything but random. It maintained an unwavering position relative to 3I ATS, and its movements appeared to be calculated, synchronized with the primary object. The companion's behavior had a distinct, purposeful quality to it. It was as if it was guiding 3I ATS, keeping it on course, ensuring its trajectory was precisely what it needed to be. This behavior, combined with the earlier detection of the radio signal and its mathematical precision, made some researchers believe that 3I ATS and its companion were not just random objects in space, but part of a larger, intelligently designed system, perhaps even an advanced surveillance mechanism, observing humanity from afar. Then, in a breakthrough that sent ripples through the scientific community, a final set of images was captured. The James Webb Space Telescope had been monitoring 3I ATS for months, and the latest infrared images revealed something stunning. Lines etched on the surface of the object that could not be explained by natural processes. These geometric patterns, too perfect to be random, suggested that 3I ATS might not be a comet nor an asteroid, but an artificial object.
The surface appeared smooth, with sharp angles and straight lines that could only be made by intelligent design. The image hinted at a complexity and sophistication that could not have arisen naturally. The possibility that 3I Atlas was a manufactured object designed with purpose and intent had now moved from speculation to serious scientific inquiry. It was no longer just a question of what 3i Batlas was. It was a question of why it was here and who or what was behind its creation. Could it be a tool, a probe, or a message from another civilization? And if it was indeed artificial, what was its purpose? As the debate raged on, the silence from space agencies continued. Governments, space agencies, and scientific institutions had all but stopped discussing 3i Batlas publicly. The data was locked away in government vaults, and scientists who had once eagerly shared their findings now refused to comment. What were they hiding? Was the truth too profound, too dangerous, or too revealing to be released to the public? Theories about the object's origins and intentions became more speculative. Some believed that 3i Batlas was a communication device, a means of contacting humanity or sending a message from a distant alien civilization. Others suggested that it was a type of cosmic scout sent to monitor Earth and observe the reactions of its inhabitants. Still others believed that 3i Batlas was a precursor to something larger, a probe sent ahead to prepare the way for the arrival of a more advanced, more significant presence. The growing uncertainty surrounding the object fueled even more conspiracy theories. Whispers began to spread that the governments and space agencies knew far more about 3i Batlas than they were letting on. Could this be the beginning of a greater cosmic event, one that had been planned for millennia? Could humanity's place in the universe be about to change forever? And if so, was 3i Batlas the herald of that change? Meanwhile, amateur astronomers continued their observations, piecing together new data and sharing their findings with the world. Despite the silence from official channels, they had not given up on uncovering the truth. One group of astronomers in New Zealand reported an unusual discovery, an additional faint signal, one that seemed to be coming from the direction of 3i Batlas. The signal was weak, but it was distinct, with a rhythm that was too precise to be coincidental. Could it be another attempt at communication? Or was it something else entirely? As the weeks passed, the object continued its journey through the solar system, its path seemingly unchanged. The radio signals and bursts of energy had stopped, but the mystery of 3i Batlas remained. The object was still there, still moving, still keeping its secrets hidden from the world. And so, humanity waited. Scientists, astronomers, and theorists continued to analyze the data, looking for answers.
But no matter how much data they gathered, the ultimate question remained unanswered. What was 3i/Atlas? And what was its purpose? The object had come from beyond the stars, and its arrival had sparked a cosmic mystery that could change everything. But for now, the world was left in the dark. The silence had returned, and the waiting game had begun again. As the days passed, the silence that surrounded 3i/Atlas became even more pronounced. The world had been waiting for answers, but the more time passed, the more the object seemed to retreat into the shadows, as if deliberately evading humanity's attempts to understand it. The silence wasn't just an absence of communication. It felt like a deliberate pause, a cosmic stillness that hung in the air. Governments, space agencies, and scientific institutions continued to refuse to comment on the object, while the data that had once been available for public scrutiny was now locked away. The world had witnessed something extraordinary, yet it seemed to have been as if it had never happened at all. For those who had followed the story from the beginning, the waiting was agonizing. Every new discovery, every new fragment of data only raised more questions. And as the silence grew, so did the sense that there was something more going on, something that the public was not being told. Some began to speculate that 3i/Atlas wasn't just a cosmic anomaly, it was a piece of a larger puzzle, a fragment of a much greater cosmic design.
What if 3I/Atlas was not a random object passing through the solar system, but something deliberately sent to Earth? Was it watching us, observing our response? Or was it simply the precursor to something bigger, an event that humanity wasn't ready for? Conspiracy theories continued to spread like wildfire, fueled by the growing mystery and the lack of transparency. Some suggested the 3I/Atlas was part of an interstellar communication network, a system of probes sent from another civilization. Others believed that the object was a sentinel, an advanced machine left behind by an ancient race, perhaps dormant for eons, but now reactivated for reasons unknown. Still others speculated that 3I/Atlas was a test of humanity's readiness to understand a greater cosmic truth. Whatever the truth was, it seemed that 3I/Atlas had a purpose, and it was waiting for humanity to realize what that purpose was. In the absence of official explanations, independent researchers continued to dig into the available data, refusing to let the mystery fade into obscurity. One group of astronomers, working out of a small observatory in Chile, made a startling discovery.
This pattern was not just random, it was geometric in nature, and it seemed to suggest an intelligent design. The lines were too precise, too sharp to be the result of natural processes. These patterns, etched into the surface of 3I/Atlas, hinted at something much more complex than a simple cosmic object. The revelation sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Was 3I/Atlas not just a comet, asteroid, or random interstellar object, but a constructed machine, an advanced piece of technology? The idea that 3I/Atlas might not be natural was now taking hold in some quarters of the scientific community. But what was its purpose? Was it a machine sent to observe Earth? Or was it part of something far larger, a part of a cosmic network designed to communicate with humanity? As the mystery deepened, the idea of an alien presence, whether intentional or accidental, began to take shape. The exact nature of 3I/Atlas and its companion object remained unclear, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to dismiss the possibility that the object was part of a deliberate, purposeful system. The energy it emitted, the strange bursts of light, the precise movement of its companion, and the inexplicable patterns on its surface all pointed to one conclusion. 3I/Atlas was not simply an accident of nature. It was something much more. And then, just as the object seemed to fade from view, a new piece of the puzzle emerged. An observatory in South Africa, which had been monitoring the radio signals from 3I/Atlas, detected something extraordinary. A new burst of electromagnetic radiation, stronger, more focused, and more structured than any signal detected previously. It lasted for only a few seconds, but its implications were far-reaching. The signal was again aimed directly at Earth, but this time it was different. It had a regularity, a pattern that was unmistakable. Some researchers even claimed that the signal was encoded, as though it contained a message, one that was being sent directly to humanity. This new discovery reignited the debate. Was this a message? And if so, from whom? Could it be that 3I/Atlas was not just observing humanity, but actively trying to communicate with us? The fact that the signal was so focused and deliberate raised the possibility that it wasn't a random burst of cosmic radiation, but a carefully crafted message, waiting for humanity to decode it. The idea that 3I/Atlas was a form of communication, whether from an extraterrestrial intelligence or some other advanced civilization, began to take hold. The idea that the object had a purpose beyond simple observation was becoming more plausible. It was as if 3I/Atlas was trying to tell humanity something,
to offer a glimpse of a reality beyond our own understanding. As the signal faded and the object once again moved out of view, the questions remained. What was 3I Atlas? Why had it appeared in our solar system?
Was it simply a natural phenomenon? Or was it part of a larger, more complex cosmic plan? And most importantly, if this was a message, what was the message, and why had it been sent? The world was left in the dark once again. But one thing was certain: 3I/Atlas had changed everything. It had opened the door to a new reality, one that humanity had never before imagined. Whether this was the beginning of a new chapter in human history or the start of something much larger, the mystery of 3I/Atlas would continue to haunt humanity for years to come. And perhaps, just perhaps, the next signal would offer the answers the world had been waiting for. The silence would not last forever. As the silence surrounding 3I/Atlas persisted, the world found itself in an uncomfortable state of uncertainty. The brief flurry of activity, the excitement of new discoveries, and the tantalizing glimpse into the unknown had all but disappeared. The radio signals, the patterns on its surface, the companion object, each discovery had pushed humanity closer to a new understanding of our place in the universe. But now, the data was locked away, and the silence returned, heavier than before. What had been uncovered was too significant, too mysterious, and perhaps too dangerous to be shared openly. Governments, space agencies, and scientists around the world had gone quiet, leaving only speculation in their wake. And with each passing day, the speculation grew louder, more intense. What was 3I/Atlas? Was it truly a message, a cosmic communication from an advanced civilization? Or was it something else, something far more unsettling? Was the object a warning, a test, or perhaps a harbinger of something greater to come? While official sources remained tight-lipped, some independent researchers, refusing to be silenced, continued their work in the shadows. These scientists and astronomers, unencumbered by the constraints of governmental secrecy, began piecing together new data, analyzing what had been shared, and re-examining the evidence with fresh eyes. In small, overlooked observatories around the world, researchers scoured the data from 3I/Atlas, searching for any clue that might unlock the object's true nature. One breakthrough came from a small team in the United Kingdom. They had reanalyzed the infrared images of 3I/Atlas captured by the James Webb Space Telescope. After enhancing the images with new algorithms, they discovered something extraordinary: what appeared to be faint, intricate geometric markings on the object's surface. These markings weren't random, as previously thought. They were deliberately crafted, etched into the surface with perfect symmetry, suggesting the presence of an advanced intelligence capable of such precision. The more the team examined these markings, the clearer it became. 3I/Atlas wasn't simply a natural object from deep space. It was a creation, an artifact, something designed with a specific purpose. The implications were staggering.
If 3I Atlas was a manufactured object, it could only mean one thing. Someone or something had sent it. But who and why? The theory that 3I Atlas was a probe or a message from an extraterrestrial civilization gained more and more traction. It wasn't just a comet or asteroid passing through the solar system. It was a deliberate visitor placed in our path to send us a message, or perhaps to observe us. But if 3I Atlas was indeed a probe, why had it arrived now? What was its purpose, and what had triggered its sudden appearance? The world's most brilliant minds were left with only more questions, no definitive answers. As astronomers continued to analyze the data, new findings seemed to suggest that the object wasn't just observing the Earth, it was actively engaging with it. The companion object, which had been traveling with 3I Atlas since its discovery, was moving with deliberate precision. Its behavior was too coordinated to be the result of natural forces. It was as if the two objects were working in tandem, perhaps as part of a larger system. As the silence deepened, another shocking discovery came from a team of physicists in Australia. Using data from radio telescopes, they detected a strange oscillation in Earth's magnetic field that seemed to mirror the precise timing of the bursts from 3I Atlas. The coincidence was too perfect to ignore. The timing of these oscillations matched the exact pattern of the signals emitted by the object, suggesting that 3I Atlas wasn't just a passive observer, it was actively interacting with Earth's natural systems, perhaps even manipulating them. The realization that 3I Atlas had the ability to influence Earth's magnetic field sent shockwaves through the scientific community. What kind of object could have this kind of power, and why was it using it? Theories began to shift from the idea of 3I Atlas as a simple probe to something far more complex. Some researchers began to propose that the object was not merely an observer, but a participant in a much larger cosmic system. If 3I Atlas was capable of manipulating Earth's magnetic field, it suggested a level of technological sophistication that far exceeded anything humanity had ever encountered. Could it be that 3I Atlas was a tool, a piece of technology, perhaps a harbinger of a larger event, a first step in a cosmic plan that had yet to unfold? As the object continued its journey through the solar system, the questions only multiplied. What was 3I Atlas trying to accomplish? Was it preparing the Earth for something? Was it observing us? Or was it interacting with us in ways we couldn't yet understand? The idea that 3I Atlas was part of a larger plan, a system that was slowly revealing itself to humanity, gained more ground. Some theorists began to propose that the object's arrival was not random at all, that it had been waiting for the right moment to make its presence known. Was this the beginning of a much larger cosmic event?
Was the silence merely a prelude to something greater? As the object continued its journey, the scientific community found itself at a crossroads. The data they had gathered was extraordinary, but it was still incomplete. The silence from space agencies and governments was stifling. What had been discovered was too profound, too significant, and perhaps too dangerous to be revealed. But one thing was certain, 3I Atlas had changed everything. It had forced humanity to look up, to consider the possibility that we were not alone in the universe, that we were part of something much larger than we had ever imagined. And just as the object appeared to be fading into the darkness once more, a final piece of data was received. A pulse of electromagnetic radiation, stronger than anything before, was detected coming from the direction of 3I Atlas. The frequency was unlike anything observed in the previous signals. This time, it was a perfect match for the spectral line of hydrogen, the most common element in the universe. The realization was staggering. 3I Atlas was communicating with us in a language we could understand. The signal, though brief, was unmistakable. The world waited in anticipation. Could this be the message humanity had been waiting for? Was 3I Atlas truly trying to communicate with us, or was it simply observing, waiting for something else to unfold? The silence had returned, but the questions remained. What would happen when the object reappeared? And what would it mean for humanity when it did? As the silence persisted, the world's scientific community was caught between anticipation and frustration. The radio pulse that had been detected from 3i.Atlas, a signal resonating with the spectral line of hydrogen, confirmed that the object wasn't just a passive visitor, it was trying to communicate. The structure of the signal, clear and precise, suggested intent, but its message remained elusive. The idea that 3i.Atlas was sending a message to humanity was gaining more ground, but the question still loomed. What was the message? Was it the first step in an interstellar dialogue, or something else entirely? A new wave of curiosity and anxiety swept across the globe. The pulse of electromagnetic radiation had sent a ripple through both the scientific community and the general public. Could this signal be humanity's first encounter with a truly alien intelligence? Was it a call to attention, a cosmic invitation, or perhaps a warning? The idea that 3i.Atlas was not just an observer, but a deliberate agent in the cosmos had become a central point of speculation. And with that, an unsettling thought began to root. What if 3i.Atlas was a messenger for something larger, something beyond human comprehension? As researchers scrambled to decode the signal, the object itself seemed to remain distant, its behavior unpredictable.
Despite this, the pattern of its movements, the radio pulses, and the recurring electromagnetic phenomena suggested that it was not drifting aimlessly through the solar system. It was following a calculated trajectory, one that was possibly aimed directly at Earth. The growing realization that 3i.Atlas was not a random object or a solitary visitor forced humanity to confront a staggering possibility. It might not be the only one. Was it part of a network, an array of interstellar probes, a system designed to monitor and potentially interact with intelligent life in our galaxy? With this idea in mind, new hypotheses began to emerge. Some speculated that 3i.Atlas was part of an ancient advanced monitoring system, left behind by a civilization that had long since moved beyond our reach. Others proposed that it was a probe sent by a still-living civilization, observing Earth as we had once observed the stars. Still, others believed that it was a test, an examination of humanity's readiness to be part of a larger cosmic community. The most chilling possibility was that 3i.Atlas was not just an emissary from another civilization, but a mechanism to prepare humanity for something far more significant, perhaps the arrival of a much larger, more powerful presence. This theory was supported by the object's calculated movements, the subtle shifts in its trajectory, and its ability to manipulate Earth's magnetic field. Was 3i.Atlas conducting an experiment, testing humanity's responses to the unknown, preparing us for what was to come? But just as quickly as the signal had appeared, it faded. The radio emission stopped, and the object disappeared from view again, this time behind the sun. For a moment, it seemed as though 3i.Atlas had simply vanished, taking its secrets with it. Yet the questions that had been raised in the wake of its appearance refused to be silenced. What was 3i.Atlas? Where had it come from? Why had it appeared now? And most importantly, when would it return? This time, however, the world was prepared for its return. Governments, scientists, and private organizations began to put measures in place, preparing for whatever 3i.Atlas's next move might be. International space agencies renewed their focus on tracking the object's movements, hoping to capture more data when it reappeared. It was clear that this anomaly was not just another astronomical object, it was something much more profound. The silence that had followed its last burst of activity only deepened the mystery. Some in the scientific community began to suspect that 3i.Atlas might have been waiting for humanity to respond, waiting for us to recognize its presence
and its message. And the fact that humanity had not responded in any significant way only added to the enigma. Theories continued to spread, some wild, some grounded in science.
One particularly compelling idea proposed that 3I/Atlas was not just an alien probe or a piece of advanced technology. It was a living entity, a sentient object capable of communication and interaction. If this was true, then the entire concept of what 3I/Atlas represented had to be redefined. It wasn't just a machine. It was a cosmic being with its own purpose and agenda. Meanwhile, the silence from the world's space agencies remained deafening. While smaller independent groups continued their work, no new public updates came from NASA, ESA, or any other major space organization. This silence, once again, raised questions. Why were they holding back? Were they simply waiting for more data before making any announcements? Or was there something more being hidden? Were the discoveries made so profound, so significant, that they were deemed too dangerous for the public to know? In a quiet corner of the scientific community, a select few researchers began to question the very nature of the silence. Was it possible that the data was being suppressed, not to protect humanity from the truth, but to prevent a global panic? Were the space agencies and governments preparing the world for a reality it wasn't ready to face? The potential for contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence, or even the discovery of something far older and more powerful than anything humanity could imagine, was a truth that could shake the very foundations of civilization. Despite the mounting tension, one thing became clear. 3I/Atlas was far more than just an object passing through the solar system. It was a message, a signal from the stars. And whether humanity was ready to hear it or not, the universe was trying to communicate. The question remained, would the world be ready for the message when it came? Or would we be left forever searching, wondering if we had missed the opportunity to unlock the greatest mystery of all? As the object moved deeper into the solar system, its trajectory was carefully watched. Was it heading back toward Earth? Or was it going somewhere else, preparing for the next phase of its journey? The silence was only temporary. Every great mystery in history had its unveiling moment. The only question left was when, not if, that moment would arrive. And when it did, would humanity be prepared to face the truth? As the months stretched on, the mystery surrounding 3I/Atlas only deepened. The object had left Earth's observation range, but the questions it raised remained unanswered. The scientific community, once united in the face of this unprecedented discovery, found itself fractured. Some believed that the object's reappearance in our solar system was no coincidence. Others, however, began to question whether 3I/Atlas was even a physical object at all.
Space enthusiasts, astronomers, and independent researchers were now combing through every available scrap of data, piecing together clues that might reveal the truth. Yet the lack of official updates and the complete lack of transparency from NASA, ESA, and other major space agencies only fueled the fires of speculation. Why were the agencies withholding vital information? Was 3I/Atlas merely a passing anomaly, or was it part of something much larger, a cosmic plan of some kind? In response to this growing unrest, amateur astronomers and independent scientists began to release their own findings. Using their own telescopes and observatories, they discovered something extraordinary. 3I/Atlas was not alone. The companion object that had followed it across the solar system seemed to have changed its behavior as well.
It no longer appeared to be following 3I/Atlas passively. Instead, it seemed to be moving independently, its trajectory no longer synchronized with that of the main object. The separation of these two objects suggested that they might have once been a single entity, possibly one that had been deliberately divided. Was this the first sign of something larger at play? More troubling were the reports from smaller observatories around the world, which began detecting a strange, low-frequency pulse emanating from the direction of 3I/Atlas. This pulse was unlike anything seen in natural cosmic phenomena. It wasn't a radio wave, a gravitational wave, or any other type of detectable signal previously catalogued. It was a signal with a deliberate rhythm, a pattern that seemed too precise to be random. Could this be the next phase in the interaction between 3I/Atlas and humanity? Speculation ran wild. Some researchers began to wonder whether 3I/Atlas was more than just a visitor from another star system. It might be a piece of a larger interstellar infrastructure. If 3I/Atlas was part of something bigger, a network of interconnected objects or systems, then the message it was sending might not be intended for us alone. Was it trying to contact other civilizations in the galaxy, or was it trying to prepare Earth for something even more extraordinary? Despite the growing body of evidence, the scientific community remained divided. Some groups argued that 3I/Atlas was simply a strange comet or asteroid, its erratic behavior a consequence of its trajectory through the solar system. But others, increasingly convinced that the object was not a random occurrence, it had a purpose, perhaps even a long-term mission in relation to Earth. Some believed that 3I/Atlas had been observing us, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And if it had been waiting, then what was its next move?
Independent scientists were left to draw their own conclusions, using the scraps of data they could collect from their own observations. The growing conspiracy theories of a cover-up gained even more traction. Then, one day, a new breakthrough came. A group of independent astronomers in Australia, using a combination of radio telescopes and deep space tracking technology, detected an unusual anomaly. This time, it wasn't just a burst of energy or a pulse. It was a signal, and it was aimed directly at Earth. The signal was structured, composed of long and short bursts with a rhythmic pattern that mirrored the frequency of 3I/ATLS's earlier signals. This discovery sent shockwaves through the amateur astronomy community, as it suggested that 3I/ATLS was not merely an object passing through our solar system, but something actively engaging with Earth. The possibility that 3I/ATLS was trying to communicate again, using this new signal, was both thrilling and terrifying. What was it saying? And who was listening? The fact that the signal was again perfectly tuned to Earth's frequency, able to be detected and decoded by our systems, raised further questions about its origin. Was this a signal meant only for Earth, or was it a broadcast to a much larger network of civilizations spread across the galaxy? In the wake of this discovery, the growing chorus of conspiracy theorists grew louder. Some believed that the silence from the space agencies was part of a coordinated effort to keep the truth hidden. Others speculated that the governments were trying to control the flow of information to avoid mass panic. Was 3I/ATLS a sign of something bigger, something that would soon be revealed? Were we being watched, not just by 3I/ATLS, but by something much more advanced? As the signal from 3I/ATLS continued to pulse through the cosmos, it was clear that humanity stood at a crossroads. The object once thought to be a mere anomaly had become a symbol of the unknown, a riddle that stretched across time and space. What was 3I/ATLS trying to tell us? And if it was truly a message, who or what was sending it? The world waited with bated breath. Every new discovery, every new signal brought us closer to an answer, but the answer itself seemed just beyond our grasp. Was 3I/ATLS a part of a larger cosmic system, a probe sent to monitor or communicate with Earth? Or was it something far more complex, a harbinger of a new era, a message from a civilization that had been watching us for eons? The silence that once felt like a mystery was now a waiting game. As 3I-ATLS continued its journey, the universe seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for humanity to respond, or perhaps for something much more profound to unfold. The mystery was far from over, and as the object drifted through the cosmos, one question remained. When would 3I-ATLS return, and what would it bring with it?
The silence that followed the discovery of the strange signal grew more pronounced with each passing day. As the object 3I/ATLS continued its journey through the solar system, the world waited with bated breath, hoping for more data, more answers. Yet no new information was forthcoming. Official space agencies, including NASA, ESA, and CNSA, had gone completely silent. No press releases, no updates, no explanations. The global scientific community was left in the dark, unsure whether this was due to a lack of new discoveries or a deliberate effort to keep the truth hidden. The lack of transparency from these organizations only fueled the growing rumors and conspiracy theories. Was there something so profound, so extraordinary about 3I/ATLS that the world wasn't ready to hear the truth? Were space agencies and governments hiding critical information about the object's origins and purpose? As the silence continued, these questions became more pressing, and the world's obsession with 3I/ATLS grew. Independent researchers, unfazed by the lack of support from official channels, continued to make their own discoveries. They analyzed the data they had, developing their own theories and hypotheses. But with every new finding, the mysteries surrounding 3I/ATLS only seemed to multiply. The more the object revealed itself, the more questions arose. Meanwhile, the signal that had been detected earlier continued to emit faint pulses, its structure becoming more complex with time. Every observation added a new layer of intrigue. The signal's rhythm seemed to evolve, shifting in frequency and intensity, suggesting that it was not simply a one-time anomaly, but rather a continual process. As if the object continued to engage in a form of communication, a slow, deliberate exchange. The mathematical precision of the signal remained constant, and some researchers began to suspect that the signal was deliberately encoded, perhaps a form of interstellar communication that humanity had yet to decipher. Some hypothesized that the object 3I/ATLS was acting as an intermediary, bridging the vast distance between civilizations. Was it attempting to communicate with Earth, or was it simply relaying information to a far-off destination? The more data was collected, the more it seemed that 3I/ATLS was not just an object, it was a message, or perhaps part of a much larger cosmic system. Theories surrounding the object's purpose began to take shape. More and more scientists began to propose that 3I/ATLS was not just an asteroid or comet, but a form of communication device. Its unusual behavior, the pulse of energy, the companion object, the complex signals, all suggested that the object was deliberately interacting with the Earth. Was it trying to relay a message from an advanced extraterrestrial civilization? Or perhaps it was part of a larger network designed to monitor and communicate with intelligent life.
The idea of 3I/Atlas as a cosmic communicator gained traction. Some speculated that it was sent by an alien civilization attempting to establish contact with humanity. The exact nature of the message remained unclear, but the growing body of evidence suggested that 3I/Atlas was far more than just a celestial body drifting through the solar system. It had a purpose It had intent. As astronomers continued to track the movements of 3I/Atlas, attention turned to its companion object. Initially, the smaller object had been dismissed as a fragment of debris or a secondary component of 3I/Atlas. However, new observations revealed that the companion object was moving with deliberate precision. It was maintaining a constant distance from 3I/Atlas, and its movements seemed to synchronize with those of the main object. The more data that was collected, the more it seemed that the two objects were working together as part of a larger system. Some researchers began to propose that the companion object was not just a passive satellite, but an active participant in the overall mission of 3I/Atlas. Was it guiding 3I/Atlas through the solar system? Could it be controlling its trajectory or providing it with power or communication capabilities? The increasing complexity of the signals and the precise movements of the two objects led some scientists to believe that they were part of a much larger, intelligent system. Perhaps 3I/Atlas wasn't just a probe, it was part of a vast network of cosmic surveillance, a system designed to observe and interact with life forms across the galaxy. As the scientific community continued to dissect the data, a fierce debate emerged. Was 3I/Atlas an alien probe? Was it part of a larger plan to establish contact with humanity? Or was it something entirely different, a natural phenomenon that simply appeared to be sentient or even intelligent? Some argued that the object's behavior was too deliberate, too complex to be the result of a natural process. The precision of its signals, the rhythmic pulses, the intricate geometric patterns on its surface, everything about 3I/Atlas suggested that it was not just a random space object. Theories about extraterrestrial contact began to take hold, with some researchers suggesting that humanity had in fact stumbled upon the first sign of intelligent alien life. Others, however, remained more cautious, arguing that the object's behavior could be explained through natural cosmic phenomena, although this explanation seemed increasingly unlikely. The debate was far from settled, but one thing was clear: 3I/Atlas was not just a passing curiosity. It was something extraordinary, something that had the potential to change humanity's understanding of the universe. And no matter which side of the debate they stood on, everyone agreed on one thing: the mystery of 3I/Atlas was just beginning to unfold.
Despite the mounting evidence and the growing excitement surrounding 3I/ATLS, the silence from global space agencies continued. Governments and space organizations around the world, including NASA, ESA, and CNSA, refused to release new data or make public statements about the object. For some, this silence only added to the mystery, fueling the growing belief that the object was too important to be made public. As independent researchers continued to work on the mystery of 3I/ATLS, the lack of official communication led to widespread frustration. Why were these agencies withholding critical information? What was so dangerous or significant about 3I/ATLS that it had to be kept secret? The silence, which had begun as a mere pause in communication, now felt more like a deliberate attempt to prevent the public from learning the truth. Rumors of a global cover-up began to circulate, and conspiracy theories flourished. Some believed that the space agencies had already made contact with the object's creators and that they were withholding the truth to avoid mass panic or chaos. Others suggested that the discovery of 3I/ATLS was part of a much larger plan, one that humanity was not yet ready to understand. Whatever the truth was, the silence only deepened the mystery. As the object continued its journey, the world waited. The questions remained. Was 3I/ATLS a harbinger of something greater? Was it part of a larger cosmic system? And most importantly, what was it trying to communicate? As 3I ATLS moved farther into the depths of space, humanity was left with a choice: to continue waiting for answers or to prepare for the possibility of future encounters. The silence from space agencies had left the public with little to go on, but the independent researchers, astronomers, and theorists who had followed the object's journey were not about to stop. Plans were put in place to track 3I ATLS as it made its way through the solar system, and new projects were initiated to gather even more data. The possibility of another encounter, perhaps a more direct one, remained tantalizing. What would humanity do if 3I ATLS reappeared? Would the world be prepared to face the reality of what it represented? As the mystery of 3I ATLS continued to unfold, the world found itself on the cusp of something extraordinary. The truth, however, was still out of reach. Would humanity unlock the secrets of 3I ATLS, or would the silence continue, leaving only speculation in its wake? As the months wore on, a new theory began to emerge that was different from anything that had been proposed before. It suggested that 3I ATLS was not just a random visitor, nor was it a communication device, but rather a key to understanding the larger structure of the cosmos. Some of the brightest minds in the field of astrophysics began to consider the possibility that 3I ATLS was part of a much larger cosmic blueprint, a design that humanity had not yet begun to comprehend.
The idea was bold. What if the object, along with its companion, was part of an interstellar network designed to monitor, guide, and perhaps even influence the course of civilizations? This theory proposed that 3I Atlas wasn't just a solitary anomaly, but a small cog in a vast and intricate system of cosmic entities, sentient or engineered, positioned throughout the galaxy. Its purpose, then, wasn't just to observe or communicate with Earth, but to play a role in the unfolding of an intergalactic plan. The data collected, the signals sent, and even the precise patterns etched into 3I Atlas's surface were all part of a grand design that had been set into motion long before humanity even existed. This new theory gained traction among some astronomers, though many were still hesitant. The idea that 3I Atlas could be part of a larger system felt almost too surreal. But the growing body of evidence, the object's erratic movements, its companion, its energy emissions, and the signals suggested that the universe was far more complex than anyone had previously realized, and 3I Atlas, for all its mystery, could be part of something greater than anything humanity had ever imagined. If this theory held any weight, it would mean that the message 3I Atlas was trying to communicate wasn't just directed at Earth. It could be a signal to other civilizations in the galaxy, a part of a larger network of cosmic entities interacting with one another over vast distances of time and space. It suggested that the universe was far more interconnected than humanity had ever conceived. Some theorists even speculated that Earth's place in this cosmic network was not as isolated as it seemed. Perhaps Atlas's arrival wasn't random. Perhaps humanity was being introduced to a much larger cosmic community, one that existed beyond the boundaries of our understanding. And then, as the world continued to wrestle with these grand theories, a new signal broke through the silence. It wasn't a random burst of radiation or a faint pulse from 3I Atlas. This time, the signal was different. It was clearer, more direct, and more complex than anything that had been detected before. It was unmistakable. 3I Atlas was returning to Earth's vicinity. The announcement sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Observatories and space agencies, who had remained silent for so long, suddenly found themselves forced to respond. It seemed that 3I Atlas had completed its journey into the depths of space and was now making its way back toward Earth. But why? What had triggered its return?
Was it part of a predetermined trajectory, or was there a deeper purpose behind its reappearance? The timing of this return raised even more questions. Was it merely a coincidence that 3II Atlas was returning at the same time that global tensions were rising?
Some theorists began to suggest that the object's movements were somehow tied to the cosmic cycles, or perhaps even to the energy and movements of Earth itself. Was 3I Atlas returning because humanity had reached a certain point in its evolution? Was this its way of monitoring Earth's progress, or perhaps testing our readiness for something much greater? As astronomers and space agencies turned their attention back to 3I Atlas, the questions grew ever more complex. The object's return wasn't just a simple reappearance, it was an event that would shape humanity's future. The message it had been trying to communicate, the role it had to play in the cosmic blueprint, and the larger network it was part of were all still unclear. But now, with 3I Atlas returning to Earth's vicinity, the stakes were higher than ever. With 3I Atlas returning to the solar system, the world was forced to prepare for its re-entry. Global space agencies, including NASA, ESA, CNSA, and others, scrambled to put together a comprehensive response. The silence that had surrounded the object for so long began to break, but it was clear that the information being released to the public was still being carefully controlled. Despite the urgency, there were still no direct statements from the top space agencies about what 3I Atlas truly was or what it meant for humanity. The fact that 3I Atlas was returning raised more questions than it answered. Was it coming back for a final encounter with Earth? Was it a prelude to something larger, a cosmic event that would change the course of history? What was the true purpose behind the object's visit to our solar system? Public interest reached a fever pitch. Governments around the world began to prepare their citizens for the possibility of contact with the object, but the lack of official communication left people feeling uncertain. Speculation ran wild across social media platforms. Some believed that 3I Atlas would bring messages of peace, while others feared that it could be the beginning of something far more ominous. Was it an advanced alien race preparing to reveal itself? Or was it a harbinger of doom, an object sent to monitor Earth before something catastrophic happened? Theories continued to multiply, but the one thing everyone agreed on was that 3I Atlas's return marked a turning point for humanity. Whether it was a sign of cosmic evolution or an impending change, the world was on the brink of something that could redefine its place in the universe. As the object drew closer, the ultimate question loomed large. Was humanity ready for what 3I Atlas represented? If this was an invitation to a greater cosmic community, would we be able to understand it, or would we respond with fear, mistrust, and hostility, as we had done throughout history with the unknown? The arrival of 3I Atlas forced humanity to confront its own limitations.
We had spent millennia looking to the stars, hoping for answers. Yet when faced with the possibility that those answers might finally come, we were unsure if we were prepared to accept them. Were we ready for the truth about the universe? Could we handle the reality of intelligent life beyond our own planet? And if 3I ATS was part of a larger cosmic plan, would we embrace our role in it? Or would we shrink back, too afraid to step forward? The world held its breath as 3I ATS grew nearer. Every telescope, every observatory, every space agency trained their sights on the object. The answers were coming, but they would not come easily. The cosmic mystery of 3I ATS was about to reach its climax, and humanity's response would determine its future. As 3I ATS moved ever closer to Earth, a sense of inevitability began to settle over the global community. The object, which had once been a distant enigma, was now within reach, and the world watched, waiting for what would happen next. Every new piece of data that emerged only intensified the anticipation.
It was clear that 3I ATS wasn't just a cosmic visitor. It was something far more significant. Space agencies around the world were working in overdrive, scanning the skies, tracking its movement, and preparing for the eventual encounter. The re-entry of 3I ATS into Earth's sphere of influence was now a global event. The object's arrival was no longer just a scientific curiosity. It was a moment of profound significance for humanity. This wasn't just about an unknown object passing through our solar system. This was a moment that could change the trajectory of human history. The increasing frequency of signals, however cryptic, and the intensity of the object's energy output raised the stakes even higher. It was as if 3I ATS was purposefully preparing for something, or perhaps signaling its return in a way that humans could understand. Researchers were working around the clock to decode the signals, which continued to evolve in their complexity. Some experts proposed that the signals were akin to a universal language, a structured pattern of communication designed to reach intelligent life across the galaxy. With 3I ATS now in the final stages of its approach, the theories began to shift from speculation to tangible possibilities. Was this object part of a larger cosmic agenda, one that had been playing out across millennia? Some theorists began to entertain the notion that 3I ATS was part of an ancient interstellar project, a mission of monitoring, observation, and communication. Could this be a piece of an intergalactic system designed to oversee the development of intelligent civilizations? This theory suggested that 3I ATS, along with its companion object, was merely the first of many objects designed to make contact with developing life forms across the universe.
Some researchers believed that this cosmic network was acting as both a sensor and a guide, monitoring life on Earth and other worlds, ensuring that each species was developing along the correct path, according to some universal blueprint. The return of 3I/Atlas, then, might signal that Earth was reaching a pivotal point in its development. Was humanity's interaction with the object the beginning of an interstellar exchange, or was it part of a much larger system in which Earth's role had yet to be revealed? The idea that 3I/Atlas was not just a singular object, but part of an orchestrated plan, one that involved countless other probes and objects hidden throughout the galaxy, became more compelling. Some experts theorized that the return of 3I/Atlas wasn't just a visit. It was a test, a measurement, a verification of whether Earth had reached a level of advancement capable of understanding and interacting with an advanced extraterrestrial network. Could humanity pass this cosmic test, or would it fail to recognize the opportunity before it? Despite the mounting evidence and increasing global speculation, one thing remained unchanged: the silence from the world's major space agencies. Governments had not issued any formal statements. No major announcements had been made. The world's most advanced space exploration organizations remained uncomfortably quiet, leaving the public and the scientific community in suspense. Why the silence? Was it merely bureaucratic caution, or was there something more significant being hidden from the public? As the date of 3I/Atlas's return grew nearer, the growing mistrust between the authorities and the public became more pronounced. People wondered if the space agencies were hiding something far bigger than a simple astronomical phenomenon. Was 3I/Atlas truly a friendly visitor, or was there something more insidious at play? Conspiracy theories proliferated on social media, fueled by the lack of transparency. Some speculated that Earth's governments had already made contact with whatever intelligence was behind 3I/Atlas, and that the silence was an effort to avoid mass panic or civil unrest. Others suggested that humanity's unpreparedness for the full truth was what kept the information hidden. Whatever the reason, the silence from space agencies only deepened the mystery and made the return of 3I/Atlas even more ominous.
The conspiracy theorists weren't the only ones questioning the silence. Many in the scientific community began to voice their concerns as well. Prominent astronomers and astrophysicists who had previously been cautious in their statements began to ask why the data from 3I/Atlas had been withheld. Was the scientific community being silenced, or was there a deeper reason for the lack of openness? And then finally, the day arrived. 3I/Atlas reappeared in Earth's field of observation. The object was now in full view, its size and magnitude visible to anyone with the right equipment.
Telescopes around the world tracked its movements, sending a flurry of new data back to Earth. This time, the object didn't just pass through the solar system. It seemed to have settled into a specific orbit, one that brought it closer to Earth than ever before. The return of 3I/Atlas was met with mixed reactions. Some in the scientific community were elated to see the object once more, eager to analyze the new data and unlock the mysteries that had so long been hidden. Others were more cautious, unsure of what the object's return might mean for humanity. As the object moved through the solar system, it seemed to grow brighter, emitting bursts of energy that were unlike anything seen before. And then, as quickly as the object had returned, something extraordinary happened. A massive pulse of electromagnetic radiation was detected coming from 3I/Atlas. This pulse was unlike anything seen in the previous signals. It wasn't just a burst of radiation, it was a deliberate wave, focused and directed at Earth. The pulse was synchronized with the rhythms of Earth's magnetic field, a signal that resonated with the planet's natural frequency. This was no coincidence. The signal was intentional. It was a message. The electromagnetic pulse was unmistakable. It was a message from 3I/Atlas, a deliberate, structured transmission directed at Earth. The timing of the pulse combined with its precision suggested that the object was trying to communicate something of profound importance. The signal wasn't random or accidental. It had been carefully crafted, designed to be understood by a species capable of receiving it. The message itself, however, was still unclear. The pulse carried with it patterns that seemed to shift and evolve, suggesting that it was more than just a simple signal. It was a complex communication. Some experts began to theorize that the pulse represented a form of language, one that humans might not yet understand. Could this be the first real contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence? Or was it a signal from a higher, more advanced system, a network of interstellar communication, of which 3I/Atlas was just one part? The world waited for answers. The scientific community analyzed the data as quickly as they could, trying to decode the message, but for now, the meaning of the signal remained elusive. Humanity was on the cusp of understanding something far greater than itself, but whether it was ready to accept this new reality remained to be seen. The object, 3I/Atlas, had come, and now it had spoken. The questions that had been lingering for so long were now within reach of an answer. The world could no longer ignore the truth. Humanity was not alone in the cosmos. And as the mystery of 3I/Atlas unfolded, the greatest question remained: what would happen next? As the signal from 3I/Atlas reverberated through the electromagnetic spectrum, a ripple of both excitement and fear spread across the globe.
For the first time in human history, it seemed that Earth had received a direct communication from an intelligence beyond our planet. The implications of this moment were staggering. It was clear that 3I/Atlas wasn't just a celestial body, it was a messenger, an emissary of something far greater. But what was the message, and what did it mean for humanity's future? In the days that followed, the global scientific community worked tirelessly to decode the signal. While the official channels remained largely silent, independent scientists and researchers, those who had been tracking the object's every move, began to piece together the data. What they uncovered was extraordinary. The signal wasn't just random noise, it was structured, composed of repeating patterns that suggested a form of intelligence. The signal didn't carry a simple message, it carried a blueprint, a cosmic language, one that humanity had never encountered before. But decoding the signal was no simple task. It wasn't a straightforward transmission. The patterns were intricate and multifaceted, shifting with time. It was as though the message was meant to be understood on a deeper, more complex level. Some theorists began to propose that the message wasn't just for humanity, it was for all intelligent life in the universe, a message encoded in a way that could be deciphered by any civilization capable of understanding it. 3i Atlas had brought with it the promise of a new era, a cosmic network that stretched across the stars. While the scientific community pored over the data, the global public reacted with a mix of awe and trepidation. News outlets, once skeptical of the significance of 3i Atlas, now scrambled to cover the unfolding events. For many, the idea that an extraterrestrial civilization was attempting to communicate with humanity was both exhilarating and terrifying. What did this mean for the future of Earth? Was humanity prepared to engage with this new intelligence, or was this the beginning of something far more ominous? Governments around the world struggled to maintain control over the narrative. While some leaders embraced the idea of a new era of interstellar cooperation, others expressed concern about the potential dangers. The silence that had been maintained by space agencies now seemed suspicious. Were they hiding something? Some members of the public began to ask, why had 3i Atlas remained hidden for so long? Was it truly just a probe, or was there a darker purpose behind its arrival? Conspiracy theories surged, with some suggesting that the message from 3i Atlas wasn't an invitation for cooperation, but a warning, a test to see how humanity would react to an advanced alien intelligence. Others speculated that 3i Atlas had been sent by a more powerful and unknown civilization to prepare Earth for a future encounter. The truth, however, remained elusive.
Despite the groundbreaking nature of the discovery, the lack of concrete answers left the world with more questions than ever before. Amidst the swirling theories and growing public unease, a team of researchers in Europe made a breakthrough. After months of painstaking analysis, they uncovered a key pattern in the signal from 3i/Atlas. It was unlike any pattern found in natural signals or radio waves. The recurring sequences seemed to correspond to mathematical principles, complex algorithms, geometric shapes, and fractals that hinted at an advanced understanding of the universe. The researchers' conclusion? The signal was an invitation, a call to engage with a greater cosmic network. The language embedded in the signal was both mathematical and physical, a way of reaching across the vast distances of space to communicate with a species that might not yet be ready for such a monumental encounter. The team hypothesized that 3i/Atlas was part of an ancient cosmic system, one that had been monitoring Earth for millennia. The object's return, then, wasn't random. It was a part of a larger plan to introduce humanity to a broader galactic community. This revelation sent shockwaves through the scientific community. For years, humanity had looked to the stars, hoping for signs of life beyond Earth. But now it seemed that those signs were finally being delivered. Yet as humanity was on the cusp of this great discovery, the question remained: would humanity accept this invitation? Would the world be able to comprehend the vastness of what had just been revealed? Or would the fears and suspicions of an unprepared public lead to rejection or conflict? As the implications of the signal began to sink in, the global response was fractured. Some nations embraced the idea of interstellar cooperation, believing that the message from 3i/Atlas was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for humanity to join a galactic community. These nations called for a unified, peaceful approach to understanding the object's intentions, proposing that the world's leaders meet and decide how best to respond. Other countries, however, were more cautious. The idea of making contact with an unknown, possibly superior intelligence raised serious concerns. If 3i/Atlas had been observing humanity, what had it learned about us? Were we ready for such a monumental shift in our understanding of the universe? Some leaders feared the consequences of such contact. What if the object, or the intelligence behind it, had a more sinister purpose?
Was humanity ready to trust what appeared to be a cosmic stranger? The growing divide between those who saw the message from 3i/Atlas as an opportunity and those who viewed it as a threat led to a global debate. The world's leaders found themselves at a crossroads. The first decision had already been made. Humanity had received a message from beyond the stars. Now, the most pressing question was, what would we do next?
Would we embrace the unknown, or would we shut ourselves off from the universe, afraid of what we might find? As the debates raged on, another stunning revelation came to light. A small group of researchers who had been working with the raw data from the signal discovered a hidden message embedded within the complex patterns. This message, unlike anything previously observed, was encoded in a way that suggested it wasn't just an invitation, it was a warning. A subtle warning, encrypted in the very structure of the signal, that suggested the object's arrival on Earth was only the beginning of something much larger. The decoded message, when translated, revealed chilling implications. It spoke of a greater cosmic force, one that had been watching humanity for centuries. The message warned that the time for Earth's awakening was approaching. What did that mean? Was humanity being prepared for a cosmic reckoning? Or was 3i/Atlas merely the first step in a much larger plan, one that would forever change the course of human history? As the message was revealed, the world's perception of 3i/Atlas began to shift. No longer just an object in the sky, 3i/Atlas was now seen as part of a larger cosmic drama, one in which humanity was both the protagonist and, potentially, the subject of a much larger galactic story. The true nature of the object was still unclear, but one thing was certain. The universe was no longer silent, and humanity's place in it was about to change forever. With the mystery of 3i/Atlas slowly being unraveled, the world found itself on the brink of a new era. The signals, the messages, and the new revelations were undeniable. Humanity was being invited to engage with something greater than itself. The object had spoken. Now it was up to the people of Earth to decide whether to answer. The decision was monumental. Would humanity embrace the opportunity to join a larger cosmic community, to take its place among the stars? Or would it reject the unknown, opting to remain in isolation, fearful of what the future might hold? The world waited, holding its breath, as the fate of this momentous encounter hung in the balance. And with the final question unanswered, 3i/Atlas lingered in the sky, a beacon in the night, waiting for humanity's response. As the final data poured in, the world found itself at a crossroads. Governments, scientists, and citizens alike now faced the greatest decision in the history of humanity. The cosmic message had been received, and its implications were vast. The world's leaders convened for an emergency summit, an unprecedented meeting between nations, astronomers, physicists, and world leaders to discuss the next steps. The summit was held in secrecy, behind closed doors, with only the most trusted individuals present. The stakes were higher than ever before. The debate that took place was intense and filled with uncertainty.
Some leaders advocated for an immediate response, suggesting that humanity should boldly engage with the unknown and attempt to establish a dialogue with whatever intelligence lay behind 3i/Atlas. They argued that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and the chance to be part of something greater than Earth could not be ignored. They emphasized the scientific, cultural, and technological advancements that could arise from such contact. Others, however, were more cautious. The fear of the unknown was overwhelming. What if the intelligence behind 3i/Atlas was not benevolent? What if it was testing humanity, waiting to see how we would respond to this cosmic challenge? Some world leaders raised concerns about the potential consequences of making contact with a force far beyond human comprehension.
The idea that humanity might be a subject in a galactic system, being observed or even manipulated, was too unsettling to ignore. As the summit continued, it became clear that the decision would not be easy. But one thing was undeniable. Humanity had to make a choice. There was no turning back. The world had been introduced to something far greater than itself. Would we embrace this new reality, or would we retreat into the safety of ignorance and fear? The weight of history hung heavy on those in the room. As discussions progressed, a new theory began to gain traction. What if 3i ATLS's arrival wasn't just an invitation to engage with a cosmic network, but a test? Some researchers began to theorize that the intelligence behind the object wasn't just observing Earth, but was actively testing humanity's ability to comprehend and respond to such a monumental encounter. Could it be that 3i ATLS had been sent not as a simple messenger, but as part of an intricate experiment designed to assess how Earth's civilization would react when faced with the unknown? This theory suggested that humanity's response to 3i ATLS would determine its place in a larger cosmic community. Would humanity approach the unknown with curiosity and openness, or would we retreat into the safety of ignorance and fear? The idea that the object was observing and judging humanity's actions began to take hold in some circles. Was 3i ATLS a precursor to something greater? Something that would judge the readiness of Earth's civilization to take the next step in its cosmic journey? Some experts began to look at the behavior of the object through a different lens. If 3i ATLS was part of a system designed to monitor and test civilizations, what criteria were being used to judge Earth? Was the universe watching to see if humanity would approach this contact with a sense of unity, or would we be divided by fear and suspicion? If humanity failed this test, would 3i ATLS depart, leaving us to remain isolated in the vastness of space? In the weeks following the summit, the scientific community focused on analyzing the latest signal received from 3i ATLS.
The object's pulses had grown more structured, and researchers began to realize that the signal contained far more than just a mathematical pattern. Embedded within the signal were references to universal laws of physics, as well as complex equations that, when decoded, described not only the nature of the object, but also the structure of the universe itself. These were not just random pulses. This was knowledge being shared. The signal's content suggested that the intelligence behind 3i ATS possessed a profound understanding of the universe, something far beyond humanity's current comprehension. It spoke of the interconnectedness of all things, of the cosmic cycles that govern not just stars and planets, but the very fabric of space and time. It described the role that each civilization, each species might play in this grand cosmic system. And most importantly, it presented a challenge to humanity. Could we rise to meet this new understanding? Could we join the larger cosmic community, or would we remain isolated in our fear and uncertainty? One researcher analyzing the equations in the signal made a startling discovery. Hidden within the data was a map of stars, galaxies, and distant worlds. But it wasn't just a star chart. The map seemed to be pointing to specific locations, places where future encounters between different civilizations might take place. These locations were not random. They were part of a larger pattern. The message from 3i ATS was clear. Earth was being invited to join a cosmic network, a system of interconnected civilizations. But humanity would have to prove its worthiness first. The decision facing the world was no longer about whether to engage with 3i ATS. It was about how to respond. The signal had been received. The message had been decoded. And now humanity had to decide if it was ready to take the next step. World leaders, scientists, and diplomats gathered once again to discuss the next course of action. The silence from the space agencies had left a void, and now it was time for humanity to fill it. Would the world respond in unison, with a single voice, Or would the divisions between nations and ideologies tear the opportunity apart? Some leaders propose that Earth should send a return message, signaling our willingness to engage and learn from the intelligence behind 3I-ATS. Others believe that humanity should wait for further signs before taking any action, fearful of the consequences of premature engagement. But time was running out. 3I-ATS, though silent, was still watching. The cosmic test was ongoing, and the world's reaction would determine Earth's place in the larger cosmic order. The map from the signal, pointing to distant locations in the universe, was not just a call to explore, it was a challenge to humanity, to prove that we could rise above our divisions, our fears, and our insecurities, and become part of something much larger than ourselves.
The decision would change everything. It was no longer about the object in the sky. It was about the future of humanity. Would we take the first step into the cosmic community, or would we shrink back into the safety of our isolation? The path forward was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the age of silence was over. The universe had spoken, and it was up to humanity to decide how to respond. As the summit concluded and the world awaited the decision of its leaders, the next steps became clear. Whether humanity was ready or not, 3I-Blast had already set the wheels in motion. The message was clear. Earth was no longer a solitary planet in the vastness of space. We were part of something much greater, something cosmic. Now it was up to us to decide what role we would play in the future of the universe. The final question remained: what happens next? Would Earth rise to the occasion, or would we remain mired in doubt and fear, unable to take the next step into the unknown? Whatever the answer, humanity had been forever changed by the encounter with 3I-Blast. The cosmos had opened a door, and now it was up to us to walk through it.
Some scientists, who had worked tirelessly to decode the signals from 3I-Atlas, were convinced that the object was part of a greater cosmic plan, an effort to integrate humanity into a larger galactic community. They saw this as a moment of unity, a moment when Earth could step out of its isolation and join the broader network of intelligent civilizations across the galaxy. On the other side, the no camp feared the consequences of such a decision. While some were openly hostile to the idea of engaging with an unknown intelligence, others simply worried about the risks. Could 3I-Atlas be a tool for invasion or colonization, a mechanism designed to test humanity's readiness and potentially impose its own will? The unknown nature of the signal had raised too many unanswered questions, and many believed it was better to proceed with caution rather than risk an irreversible mistake. These concerns were not only shared by political leaders, but also by a segment of the scientific community, who argued that without more data, engaging with 3I-Atlas could endanger humanity's future. As the day of the vote came, the world stood still in anticipation. It was a decision that no one had ever imagined they would be asked to make, and yet here it was, the most crucial decision in humanity's history. The results of the vote were released in real time. Each nation, through its representatives, had cast its vote, whether for or against communication with 3I-Atlas. The tension was unbearable as people around the world waited for the final tally. Then, at last, the results flashed across every screen, every news outlet. The world had spoken. In a surprising turn of events, the vote was nearly evenly split. The final tally revealed that 51% of the world's population voted in favor of initiating communication with 3I-Atlas. Despite the fears and suspicions that had permeated the global discourse, humanity, as a whole, had chosen to reach out, to take the leap into the unknown, and to join the cosmic community. The vote was a monumental step forward, not just for humanity, but for the entire planet.
The people of Earth had chosen hope over fear, curiosity over caution. But the margin was slim. The result left the global community with lingering doubts, and the division between those who had supported communication and those who had opposed it remained palpable. The decision was made, but the consequences were still unknown. The decision to communicate with 3i Atlas marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. The world's space agencies, now given the green light by their respective governments, began to make preparations for first contact. The scientific community, which had been preparing for this moment for months, now had the resources and authority to proceed with their research and experimentation. The focus turned to the object itself, its signals, its behavior, and the next steps in making contact.
In the days following the vote, teams of scientists and engineers worked day and night to establish a communication protocol. The task was monumental. 3i IAT Atlas's signals had been complex and cryptic, and the object's true purpose remained unclear. But now, humanity was ready to take its first steps toward making contact. Every resource was mobilized. Telescopes, satellites, and even ground-based instruments were aligned to send a response to 3i IAT Atlas, a reply to the message that had come from beyond the stars. At the same time, governments and leaders from around the world made public statements confirming that humanity had chosen to embrace the unknown. The news was met with mixed emotions. Some celebrated the bold step into the galactic community, while others expressed fear and skepticism about what was to come. Weeks passed, and humanity waited for a response. The anticipation was overwhelming, as it seemed that the moment of truth had arrived. Would 3i IAT Atlas respond to humanity's invitation? Would it confirm the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence, or would it remain silent, leaving Earth to wonder whether it had made the right decision? Then, one day, the unthinkable happened. A new signal, even clearer than the previous ones, was detected. This time, however, the response wasn't just a pulse of energy or a series of complex patterns. It was something more, something that could no longer be mistaken for an accident. The message was not just directed at Earth, but appeared to be a global transmission broadcast to every corner of the planet. It was as though 3i IAT Atlas had been waiting for humanity to speak, to reach out, and now it was ready to respond in kind. The content of the signal was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. It was a complex amalgamation of mathematical equations, visual patterns, and, perhaps most shockingly, audio, sounds that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of space. The message was designed to be understood by every human being, a universal language that transcended borders, languages, and cultures. The message was clear. Welcome, Earth. Your journey has just begun. The message from 3i Atlas, though cryptic, held a profound implication. Humanity was not alone in the universe. We had been invited into a larger cosmic community, one that stretched across the stars. The opportunity to join this community was exhilarating and terrifying. Humanity had stepped into the unknown, but now we would have to prove ourselves worthy. The world's leaders stood together, announcing that Earth was officially part of a larger galactic network, one that was willing to share its knowledge and wisdom with humanity. This new reality would redefine the course of human history. Technology, knowledge, and a greater understanding of the cosmos would be shared. But the cost would be high. The responsibility of becoming part of this community would require humanity to evolve, to transcend old divisions, and to work together as one species, united in the pursuit of knowledge and peace. In the wake of the message, the world began to change. New alliances were formed, borders blurred, and humanity's focus shifted toward the stars.
For the first time, Earth was no longer a solitary planet in a vast, uncaring universe. We were part of something much bigger. And as the dust settled, a final question lingered in the air. What would we do with this newfound knowledge? Would we rise to the challenge, or would we fall short of our potential? The universe had spoken, and now humanity had to decide what kind of future it wanted to build. With the Earth now officially part of a larger galactic network, the concept of diplomacy took on an entirely new meaning. No longer were world leaders concerned solely with managing conflicts on Earth. Their eyes were now set on something much larger, representing humanity in a community that stretched across the stars. The first step was establishing an interstellar council, a platform where representatives from various civilizations could come together to discuss universal matters. A series of unprecedented meetings were scheduled, with delegates from humanity preparing to engage with other species that had long ago mastered interstellar travel and possibly even mastered the art of communication with different forms of intelligence. The concept of universal peace, once a utopian ideal, was now within reach. But the challenges ahead were immense. Each civilization, no matter how advanced, had its own history, values, and unique perspective on the universe. Earth would need to navigate these complexities carefully to avoid missteps that could jeopardize its position in this vast cosmic alliance. As the first interstellar summit loomed, humanity's leaders reflected on the weight of this new responsibility. For the first time in history, Earth was no longer just a collection of individual nations, but a single entity with a voice on the galactic stage. But would humanity be able to rise to the occasion? The world's eyes were on the representatives who would shape Earth's future on the cosmic level. One of the most immediate benefits of humanity's entry into the galactic community was the knowledge that began to flow from other civilizations. The technologies that had once been the stuff of science fiction, faster-than-light travel, advanced energy sources, medical breakthroughs, were now within humanity's grasp. But with this knowledge came a responsibility that many weren't prepared for. The advanced technologies shared by extraterrestrial allies were beyond anything humanity had ever developed. In a matter of months, humanity's scientific community saw explosive advancements.
Disease that had plagued Earth for centuries was eradicated in weeks, and energy problems that had stifled global growth for decades were solved using methods far more efficient than anything previously imagined. But with each breakthrough, the question arose, what would humanity do with this newfound power? Some leaders cautioned against hasty decisions, urging that humanity should take time to adapt to these new technologies, ensuring that they were used responsibly. Others feared that the rapid spread of this knowledge could outpace humanity's ability to manage it. As the understanding of the universe grew exponentially, so did the potential for misuse. Ethical dilemmas surrounding the use of advanced technology became a central issue. Would humanity be able to use this knowledge wisely, or would it be tempted by the power it could now wield? As Earth's scientific community rapidly expanded, many began to wonder, was there a hidden agenda behind the sudden influx of this knowledge? Was this vast array of resources being offered as a form of cosmic trust, or was there a deeper, long-term plan that humanity had yet to uncover? Despite the shared excitement over the arrival of new knowledge and opportunities, the world was not without its challenges. The division that had existed on Earth for centuries between nations, ideologies, and cultures had not disappeared with the announcement of 3I-ATAT's return. In fact, the increased awareness of Earth's place in a larger cosmic community led to new forms of rivalry. The idea of participating in galactic diplomacy and sharing interstellar resources led to fierce debates about how this knowledge should be used and distributed.
Certain groups within Earth's global community feared that powerful nations or corporations might monopolize the newly acquired technologies for their own gain, potentially exacerbating the existing inequalities between the wealthy and the poor. Others saw the integration of humanity into the galactic network as an opportunity to unite the world on a common mission, to forge a new identity for Earth. But this vision of global unity was clouded by old prejudices, as nations and groups struggled to maintain their influence and control over the new cosmic opportunities. Some factions within Earth began advocating for a more cautious approach, calling for strict regulations on how the knowledge and technologies should be distributed. They warned that humanity was not yet ready for the responsibility that came with such power, and that the risk of corruption or exploitation could undermine the very foundations of intergalactic cooperation. In contrast, there were those who pushed for faster integration into the galactic community, eager to move beyond the old paradigms of earthbound politics and embrace the opportunities that came with cosmic citizenship.
These advocates saw the arrival of 3I Atlas as the dawn of a new era for Earth, one that could propel humanity into an age of prosperity and exploration. The tension between these opposing viewpoints led to a series of conflicts on Earth. Protests, debates, and political battles erupted over how best to handle the newly acquired power. Would humanity be able to overcome its divisions, or would the old rivalries hold it back from reaching its full potential in the cosmic network? Finally, the day arrived for humanity to make its mark on the galactic stage. Representatives from Earth, chosen through a global process that reflected the will of the people, gathered for the first galactic summit, held on a massive space station orbiting a distant star. The summit was designed to be a forum for dialogue between various advanced civilizations, a space for learning, sharing knowledge, and forging interstellar agreements. As Earth's delegates arrived, they were met with representatives from civilizations that spanned countless light years, each species vastly different from the other. Some were humanoid in appearance, others were not even close to resembling anything Earthlings could imagine. Despite these differences, there was one common thread that tied them together: the understanding that the universe was not only vast, but interconnected. This summit was not just about politics, it was about the future of the galaxy itself. Earth's delegation was nervous but hopeful. They knew that their actions at this summit would determine the role humanity would play in the future of interstellar relations. There was no turning back. The question was no longer whether humanity would embrace the galactic community. It was how Earth would fit into this larger cosmic network. As the summit began, the representatives of the various advanced civilizations shared their stories, their histories, and their visions for the future. Earth's delegates spoke of their challenges, of their history of conflict, of division, and of the potential for unity. They spoke of their desire to contribute to the greater cosmic community, but also of their doubts and fears about the future. The first interactions were tense, as both human representatives and their galactic counterparts tried to find common ground. But over time, as conversations continued, a deeper understanding began to emerge. Earth was not being judged by its past, it was being welcomed for its potential, for the lessons it had learned, and for the progress it had made in the short time since the arrival of 3I Atlas. The summit culminated in an agreement. Humanity would be accepted into the galactic network, but with the understanding that it would take time to adapt to its new role. Earth would have to work alongside other civilizations, learning, growing, and ultimately contributing to the greater good of the cosmos. The future was uncertain, but the possibilities were limitless.
As the first galactic summit concluded, the delegates from Earth returned to their home planet with a new sense of purpose. Humanity had been accepted into the galactic fold, but the work was just beginning. The knowledge that Earth had gained was only the beginning of a long journey, one that would reshape the planet, its society, and its understanding of its place in the universe. The next phase would involve collaboration on a level never before imagined, cooperating with species and civilizations that had lived for eons, each with its own wisdom and technology. Earth would not be alone anymore. The mysteries of the universe would slowly unfold before humanity, and with each new discovery, humanity's role in the cosmic community would become clearer. But there was still much to learn, still much to understand. And though humanity had taken its first step into the unknown, the journey was only beginning. What lay ahead was an exploration not only of the stars, but of humanity itself, its ability to adapt, grow, and contribute to a much larger, interconnected cosmos.